Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Let's get started. Welcome to today's deep dive. We've fed our system a massive stack of sources today.
Oh, a huge stack.
Yeah, we're talking the complete text of Jonathan Kellerman's novel Jigsaw, a bunch of author interviews, and some really detailed character case files. And our mission for you today is to basically unravel the twists, the turns, and just the sheer absurdity of this story. We're going to summarize the plot chronologically.
Right, which is quite a ride.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are tracking this massive, sprawling web of past grudges and psychopathy. And it's all anchored by these two main characters. You have the brilliant clinical psychologist Alex Delaware and his best friend LAPD homicide lieutenant Milo Sturgis.
A really iconic duo.
Exactly. And just to set the stage for you, to give you a sense of their dynamic right out of the gate, Alex actually notes early in the text that Milo is one of only two people in his life who would help him hide a body.
That is some absolute unquestioning trust right there.
Right. But ironically, the story does not kick off with him hiding a body. It actually starts with the discovery of not one, but two bizarre and seemingly completely unrelated murders.
And what's fascinating here is how the author masterfully takes these seemingly isolated acts of violence and weaves them into this massive web. You have victims who share absolutely zero geographic, social, or demographic overlap.
Nothing at all.
Right. But Kellerman uses human psychology to string them together. It's this incredible exploration of how buried history and old grudges eventually force their way to the surface in ways that feel completely shocking.
But also, like, entirely inevitable in hindsight.
Exactly.
So let's look at the first murder. We have a 38-year-old woman named Sophie Barlow, and the scene is, it's oddly serene at first glance. She's found sitting at her kitchen table, fully clothed, no signs of a struggle whatsoever.
But she was strangled.
Yes, strangled right there at her table. And the killer left behind this very specific, almost theatrical calling card. Sitting on the table is a plastic bowl being used as a makeshift ashtray. And inside the bowl are a couple of Marlboro Gold cigarette butts.
Which is key because Sophie wasn't a smoker.
Right. So the detectives do what they always do. They run the DNA from the saliva on the butts. They get a hit in the system, and boom, it points directly to Michael Heck.
Her ex-boyfriend.
Yep, the ex-boyfriend, who also happens to have a prior felony record. So they arrest him, figuring, hey, we just got a really stupid criminal open and shut case.
It looks like textbook police tunnel vision, honestly.
Oh, 100%.
When law enforcement gets a hard DNA hit right at the crime scene, especially pointing to an ex-partner with a record, this cognitive bias often kicks in. The investigative aperture just narrows prematurely because the evidence is telling a very convenient story.
But that convenience completely shatters just 2 days later. Heck is locked up in county jail, and his defense attorney doesn't just, call the precinct. She storms the place.
Oh, it's quite the entrance.
It is. Bettina Belgettis, this Armani-wearing corporate litigator, rolls into the station with a literal wheelie bag full of evidence.
Wheelie bag.
Yes. And she essentially tells Milo to sit down and shut up because she has ironclad alibi proof for her client. And think about how hard it is to prove exactly where you were last Tuesday at 8:00 p.m. I mean, I don't even know what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Let alone have documentation.
Right. But Bettina brings time-stamped CCTV footage, digital readouts from hotel key swipes, room service bills, and these crystal-clear camera shots of Heck checking out of a hotel with a mystery blonde. At the exact time Sophie was being strangled, Heck was 120 miles away in La Jolla.
Which completely upends the forensic narrative. If Heck was 120 miles away, the DNA evidence wasn't a mistake. It was a weapon.
Wow, yeah.
Someone deliberately acquired his used cigarette butts, which implies access to his trash or his personal space, and planted them at the murder scene. That requires deep premeditation.
Someone didn't just want Sophie dead. They specifically wanted to frame Michael Heck. They wanted him to rot in prison for it.
Exactly.
Well, before Milo can even begin to pull the threads on who would frame an ex-boyfriend like that, he gets called out to a second scene. And this one it's much grimmer.
Yeah, the scene is rough.
A neighbor calls in a welfare check on an elderly woman living in this fading green house. The mail is spilling out, and a dog had been barking wildly at the window. Imagine walking into that house. The responding officers open the door to a floor-to-ceiling hoarder's palace.
Just stacked to the ceiling with old newspapers.
Right, they're navigating through these narrow little makeshift aisles carved through the junk.
The psychology of hoarding often points to severe trauma, a desperate need for control. But the chaos of the house is just the prelude.
Yeah, because Officer Santos checks the garage, and he finds a chipped white deep freeze that is plugged in and humming. Inside is the homeowner, 72-year-old Martha Mathias.
And just like Sophie, Martha had been strangled.
But that is where the similarities end, because Martha's arms were cleanly sawed off post-mortem. The killer posed those severed arms, folding them across her torso before freezing the body. And the massive twist here,
Yeah.
Martha wasn't just an elderly hoarder. She was a trailblazing former LAPD homicide detective.
Who actually used to work with Milo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that connection changes everything.
It does. The emotional toll that takes on an investigator is immense. But looking objectively, the dismemberment is a huge behavioral clue. Usually an offender removes hands to obscure identity, but here the arms were cleanly severed and deliberately posed.
Which is staging, right?
Exactly. It's a form of psychopathologic behavior. The killer is communicating a message asserting total dominance. They turned Martha's home into a slaughterhouse, cleaned it up, and took the time to freeze her.
Now, if you're trying to figure out the motive, you might assume robbery, right? A vulnerable elderly woman. And the crime scene techs sifting through that hoarder's maze actually find a fortune.
They do.
They find a manila envelope with $10,000 tucked into a wall gap. Then they find another $50,000 stuffed into a slit cut deep into a mattress. Untouched cash.
Which changes the motive entirely. If it was a robbery gone wrong, a burglar would have torn that room apart until they found the cash, and they certainly wouldn't have stuck around to perform a post-mortem dismemberment and stage the body in a freezer.
No way.
The violence here is deeply personal. It indicates a psychological puzzle fueled by simmering rage.
And the tragedy just keeps going. The investigation reveals Martha had a 46-year-old developmentally disabled daughter named Lynn. Lynn lived at a care facility called Safe Place. Just days after Martha's murder is discovered, Lynn goes missing.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. And her body is quickly found in an Irwindale landfill. But unlike her mother, Lynn wasn't strangled. She wasn't dismembered or posed. She was simply bludgeoned to death.
This shift in methodology from strangulation to blunt force trauma is incredibly telling. The first two murders were performative. Lynn's murder was frantic. It was about eliminating a liability.
So this is where Alex Delaware's clinical expertise really comes in, right?
Yes, his crucial aha moment regarding the math of murder. He looks at the statistical realities. Strangulations account for less than 1.5% of homicides.
Wow, that's incredibly low.
Extremely low. So what are the odds of two unrelated strangulations occurring within weeks of each other in the same area?
Right. So what does this all mean?
It means the detectives realize Sophie, Martha, and the tragically collateral Lynn must all be connected to a single architect of violence. The math leaves no room for independent killers.
Finding the connective tissue means they have to dig into the past. They go back 10 full years into the professional histories of the victims and the suspects.
And they find the nexus point.
Yes.
Yes.
Michael Heck, the framed ex-boyfriend, and Martha Mathias, the murdered former detective, both worked on the exact same federal fraud task force a decade ago. It was this massive case involving a corrupt scam artist lawyer named Darren Alberts.
Martha was the bulldog detective investigating the fraud.
And Heck was the firm's administrator who turned police informant. Martha actually interviewed Heck multiple times during that probe.
It's a brilliant narrative convergence. But we still have that glaring issue, Heck's ironclad alibi for Sophie's murder. If he's the target of a frame-up linked to this old fraud case, how did he magically have the perfect alibi in La Jolla?
Oh, this is where Milo and Alice get really smart. They crack that La Jolla alibi, they pull the parking lot surveillance footage from the hotel, and they catch a glimpse of that mystery blonde who checked out with Heck. She drops her keys, gets annoyed, reaches up, and pulls off her blonde wig.
Revealing a head of distinctive red hair.
It's Bettina Belgedis, his own high-powered defense lawyer.
It is an astounding level of legal corruption. Bettina and Heck staged the entire alibi. When Heck was arrested, Bettina knew he was innocent because she'd been in the hotel room with him. But she deliberately let him sit in a county jail cell for 2 full days.
They let him rot in lockup just to lay the groundwork for a massive civil lawsuit, a multi-million-dollar false arrest scheme against the city.
And by busting this greedy scheme, the detectives strip Heck of his leverage. Facing disbarment, he finally drops the attitude and talks.
He confesses to a terrible dating history. Back during the fraud days, he was having an affair with Darren Albert's wife, Tiana Crown. She's a former Playboy Mansion girl with a volatile temper and an actual arsenal of guns and knives. Heck dumped her for Sophie.
And hell hath no fury.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting.
If we connect the psychology here, Tiana Crown is the killer. She strangled Sophie to put a hole in the soul of the man who dumped her. Framing him with his own cigarette butts was about sending him to prison and utterly destroying his life.
And then she targeted Martha out of lingering, festering rage over that old fraud investigation.
Yes, Tiana blamed Martha for the collapse of her wealthy lifestyle, strangling her and using a cheap $9 mini woodworking jigsaw to sever the arms of a former detective. It was about asserting absolute power over the woman she felt ruined her.
Which brings us to the climax. The detectives track Tiana down. She's living under the alias Rhonda Cronin. They corner her in a downtown alleyway, the exact same alley where she dumped Lynn's body.
She doesn't go quietly.
Not at all. She slashes Detective Villalobos with a hobby knife, but Alicia quickly surrounds and arrests her. And the smoking gun. In Tiana's purse, Alicia finds that exact $9 Korean mini woodworking jigsaw.
The physical evidence is insurmountable. But Tiana's cold-blooded confession is what's truly terrifying.
She shows zero remorse in that interrogation room.
None. She admits to killing Lynn simply because Lynn led her to Martha. She describes murdering this developmentally disabled woman as a kindness.
Like putting a dog out of its misery. It's sickening. And the dark humor of it all, she gloats. She tells the detective she won because she gets to go to a place with a bed, meals, and no need to fill out forms to get by.
She views a prison sentence as a free ride. It leaves you with a deeply provocative thought to chew on. Think about the idea that our past actions, even a routine professional investigation from a decade ago, or a casual romantic fling, can ripple forward and collide in unimaginable, fatal ways.
You really never truly know the psychological fragility of the people on the periphery of your life.
You don't.
And if you need one final shudder from the source material to keep you awake. 5 months later, Alex Delaware receives a letter from Tiana in prison. She talks about making birdhouses in the crafts room and casually tells Alex to visit her because he has kind eyes.
Ugh, chilling.
Alex promptly throws that letter right into his murder file. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge, spread the word.